Mackenzie.
Lamar.
And your mother too. How are you?
I'm good. It's a Friday afternoon. I'm just warning everybody. I'm a little fried. We're gonna see how it goes.
Fried Friday, they call it. We both should have brought our moms for this episode. It would have made perfect sense. They would love this film.
Honestly, I'm sure it would be their first choice.
Yeah. So won't get too much into the plot, but the gentlemen in this, the two main actors, have this sort of bond with their male friends, and they have their own little manifesto that they refer to, and they have all the rules memorized. To their credit, there's like 13 rules, and they have these fuckers memorized. So tying back to, our rules back in February when we were talking about, love and relationships and things like that, the rules of attraction, let's do one with friendship. What is, you and your girlfriends, or just close friends in general, if you had a manifesto of rules about your friendship, what would number one be?
I think, with like my friends in general, my number one that comes to mind, maybe there's something different, I don't know. But the thing that comes to mind to me is that I'm a real like vault. If you tell me that something is private and it is between the two of us, I don't fuck around with that. Like, I will not tell people things, even if they're like, well, I know about the thing that you know about. Cool. Then you can tell me, but I will neither confirm nor deny. I take private information and secrets very, very seriously. So if you have a secret, you can trust me with it.
Like,
keep your friends' secrets. Yeah. If it's
underrated friendship rule. And then when you have somebody in your life that's telling you all their friends' dirt, then they're doing that about you to everyone else. So you never share anything with them.
And they'll like, what I've noticed about those folks is they pry, like and they'll give you like a nugget and they want you to share something back. And I'm like, I'm just here to listen, man. Like, I'm not gonna share. So I don't know. Yeah. I don't trust those folks either. But what about you?
I was trying to think of like what number one would be. I feel like with guys, and I'm not like trying to, lean into gender norms. We've talked about how this month I am doing my absolute best to not put my foot in my mouth. So when I say guy friends, girlfriends, like open to all genders, but my close friends in my life, like I couldn't think of a number one. And I feel like with dudes, traditional dudes, it's like almost unspoken. You don't really have to talk about what the rules are unless you're in this movie, apparently. But I would say number one in the back of everyone's head is just loyalty. Just that one word, loyalty. Means, you're there for each other. You don't betray each other. You don't lie about each other or like do anything to harm each other. And then I think it's also like if your buddy says, hey, I need to get a drink and talk, like you go. That's loyalty to me. Now, if it's drink number 7 of the night, not necessarily. They might not need that one. But if they're just out of the blue, like, hey, can we grab a drink? That is a yes every single time.
Yeah,
loyalty.
I hard agree. Loyalty is also, I think, very underrated and not at least not talked about in the same way. So yeah, I totally agree. They technically had 10 rules, so I think we did great. We're like, we got one
Short
and one.
And sweet. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, let's dig in.
Let's.
Welcome back to We Drink and We Watch Things. I'm Mackenzie.
Yo soy Lamar.
Yo soy Mackenzie. Sorry, you're right.
Go.
Totally. Okay, so if you have missed the memo, this month here on the pod, we are covering Pride films. And this entry is going to be our B entry for Y tu Mamá También. And this is, I feel like it's kind of a classic, but I haven't seen it in a while. So
I had never seen it.
Excited.
This is my first time. I didn't even know Diego Luna's in this. Not to spoil the cast, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's and they're such babies. Like they're such babies in this. It's so funny. Anyways, so I'm excited to get. Speaking of babies, we'll have a little hint there in our drink here in just a second. But what are we drinking?
Yeah, so this is one of the first times we've done a shot as the drink of the pod episode. We've done shots on the pod before, but I think this is the first time we've just done a shot straight up as the drink. But This is very sweet and very creamy. I took a little sample sip of it, but it's 0.75 ounces of vodka and then half an ounce each of amaretto, Irish cream, and either Kahlua or Tia Maria. And you just shake all those up, strain them into, you're probably going to need a tall shot glass. It's a little more than 2 ounces, but you could always just drink the leftover like I did. And we are calling this Charolastra, right? How do I say it?
Charolastra Shooter. It's
Shooter.
Yeah, it's a little homage to their limited stamina in this film. So we're just gonna go all in.
Yeah, I'm gonna do my best today to do as many words in Spanish as possible because I know my friend Ashley is listening and she is from Mexico, or is Mexican, I should say. And she criticized the way I said the title of the movie. She corrected me. So because of that, because I am spiteful and don't let anything go, so I'll call the drink Charolastra. What was the second word?
Shooter.
Shooter. All right. I'll do that one in a British accent. Cheers.
Cheers.
I got to pound the table with this too.
Oh, that is sweet. That's very
dessert
sweet.
in a glass.
I hadn't tried it yet, folks, so that was
a good
real time
reward
reaction.
at the end of the day, Friday. I'm also going to be sipping on a cerveza over here, just because I wanted something to drink during the ep as well.
Look at you. I didn't get the memo. Okay, well, whatever.
You're also
fine.
going out to dinner. I am staying in and relaxing
It's
tonight,
true.
so.
I shouldn't have anything else. I'll just be sipping my water like a good kid. Okay, let's do some basics and then get into the fun stuff. So this is, again, Y tu Mamá También. This is 2001. This is 7.7 out of 10 on IMDb, 90% from critics, and 88% from audiences. So very strong reception all around, really.
Yeah, well, it's like ahead of its time. I feel like I say that about every movie this month, but for when they came out and you think about where like sex, romance, marriage, and like politics, where all that was, I feel like all of these films were a bit ahead of their time in some capacity.
I do think so. And we'll talk about that more in our next one as well. I think like deeply ahead of its time. And I think it just speaks to how innovative and, forward thinking and visionary film can be and often is. It's really blazing the trail. And I think this, among other selections this month, really did that. So it's really cool.
For sure.
Okay, really quick, director/writer here, co-writer, Alfonso Cuarón. You know him from things like Gravity and Roma, both of which won Oscars. And if you're a nerd like me, then he ruined Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban for us. It was kind of wildly different, especially in terms of set, but it is very much his style. He also did some horror anthology series when he was younger that apparently nobody knows him for, but I thought I would call out as some of his least known, which is La Hora Marcada, and it's like a 1980s horror anthology series. So I thought you should maybe check it out and report back.
Never heard of it, but I will check it out. What was it called?
La Hora Marcada.
The Market Whore? I don't speak Spanish. What is this about?
I actually don't know what it's about. I think it's supposed to be like an anthology of different, kind of just horror stories, short stories, like little vignette kind of things.
Okay.
So yeah, you'll have to look into it and let us know how it is. You're the resident horror researcher on the pod, so that's your job.
Happy to oblige.
All right, and our other co-writer is his brother, Carlos Cuarón. He has co-written with Alfonso multiple times, but he's probably most well-known standalone for Rudo y Cursi, and then least well-known for El Ingrediente Secreto. I don't know what that is.
I've never heard of it, for the record. So
I mean, I haven't watched a lot of Spanish film. I'm going to be on. Well, this is actually Mexican film, so I haven't watched a lot of Mexican films. I've actually watched more Spanish films than that. So, but they're kind of the dynamic duo. They really have done a ton of work together before they made it really big. That anthology series, La Hora Marcada, is the one that kind of they cut their teeth on. That's where they really kind of made their film debut, but also became friends with Guillermo del Toro, who we've talked about before. So they're famously really close friends, and that's where they met him, working on
now,
that.
Are we sure that Cuarón is not Spanish for Cohen, and that this isn't just the Cohen brothers in disguise making movies together in Spanish language?
I'm sure that that's what it is. You figured it out. I think.
I've never seen them in the same place at the same time. All four of them. Just saying.
They've been trying. I bet somebody's going to come in hot and be like, actually, and send us and tell us exactly when that happened.
100%.
Well, another fun factoid on this that I wanted to point out is our cinematographer is Emmanuel Lubetsky, which your eagle-eared listeners will know was on the Birdcage as well, which I just think is
Okay.
wildly different. And he is an incredibly well-regarded cinematographer. He did Birdman, The Revenant, Gravity. All of those
Huh.
won Oscars back to back to back. And then he did this as well. So yeah, he's just got fucking range and skill. And he's like, if I'm going to do it, we're going to win an Oscar. Let's go.
It's crazy to win 3 Oscars back to back for any category. That is
I mean, yeah.
insane.
Yeah, and and I just love that this is like a Mexican filmmaking community, like the writers, the cinematographers, like the directors. It's really cool how this has produced such incredible films, and this is one of this again one that's really well regarded. Alrighty, homies, we got some. We really have a pretty small cast and crew here because we spend time with 3 people, so
Yep.
this should be quick. Maribel Verdú plays Luisa Cortez. She was in Pan's Labyrinth, and that's, I mean, Guillermo del Toro, like we said. So that's that is probably the thing she's most famous for. And then again, mostly Mexican or Spanish film that most people probably wouldn't know, at least in the States. And her least well-known, lowest rated was Siete Miles de Días Juntos.
Which means I was counting on you to, and for those of you that can hear it, my voice is a little shot right now because Mackenzie made me really laugh hard with her Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban joke. Maybe we could put that outtake after the closing credits today.
I mean, I think everybody should see how the color that your face changed. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
I was like in the middle of a swallow and it just caught me off guard. Yeah.
I mean, I'm here to help. But we also have Gael García Bernal, who plays Julio Zapata. He is probably most well known, like him, the physicality of his person, The Motorcycle Diaries.
Mhm.
Very, very popular that people will probably know him from is Coco, which if you haven't seen it, it's going to make you fucking sob.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Is he the voice
Yeah.
of Coco? Or not Coco, of the kid? What's the kid's name?
Of the kid. I can't remember the kid's name, but I
I'll
do
just
know
have to-
that I cried a lot.
I'm trying to think of I'm wondering who he is now. Oh, I'm so curious. Okay. I will look it up after.
I mean, you're allowed to Google. I'll let you Google if you want. But point is, that's the one that you probably know him from. And again, if you've seen it, he's made you cry before. He is least well known probably for Vidas Privadas. Again, haven't seen it. Sorry, can't help you. And then his brother in real life, practically, they have been friends since they were itty bitty, and their families have been friends since before they were born. Their fathers were friends. Diego Luna is his best friend, plays Tenoch Iturbide, which I think comes through in this story, in this film. Like they just seem like brothers,
I think it was a very
from the
intentional casting decision. I don't think the director or casting agent really wanted to at first, but then they just saw the bond they had and they're like, actually, for how this story is going to play out and the arguments they're going to have, it actually makes a ton of sense for them to be besties IRL. I think it works.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes through absolutely, including the tensions and the hard parts that we see as well. But you probably know Diego for all the Star Wars stuff that he's been in, most notably Rogue One, which is one of my favorite offshoot films, and then Andor, the series Andor. He's in that as well.
Our friend Sam has told me multiple times that Andor is the best piece of Star Wars media that's been created, and he's a huge Star Wars nerd, but he feels that it is number 1 at the top of the list.
So I feel like a traitor because I haven't watched Andor yet, and I hear ad nauseum that I need to, but it was similar to Marvel in that when that was coming out, I was a little tapped.
Burnt out. Yeah.
And so I was like, I just need a little bit of a break, and I need to get back into it because in general I'm kind of behind, but I hear that it's incredible. So good to know. He's least well known for Un Hilito de Sangre, which I do know is a stream of blood for the record. So that sounds gross. Not good. Maybe it's another horror one that you can check out.
I was going to say, yeah.
You can check it out for us and let us know. That's your whole job.
Also loved him as a villain in Narcos Mexico. He was really good in that.
Narcos is good, man. That's a good one. Okay, plot summary. In Mexico, 2 teenage boys and an older woman embark on a road trip and learn a thing or two about life and each other.
Boy, do they ever.
Boy, do they ever. All right, turn around, don't drown. It's spoiler time. Okay, so my first note is it's not a real topic that we have to discuss at length at all, but my first note is literally boys are hoes.
No,
Like
110%. Or at least pretend to be hoes. They talk a
like
big game.
teenage boys are fucking hoes.
Yeah.
And like I think we just see like they are so close and tight. It's too much. Like it goes too far. I'm like I don't feel like I know guys that would do some of these things, but who knows? Maybe I did. Maybe I just don't want to know. I don't know. But they're so tight and such hoes. It gets, it gets a little gnarly right away, I think.
Yeah, I haven't had too many friends in my life who are this like stereotype of boys that are in the room talking about the girls that they've had
Mhm.
sex with. That doesn't happen as often as I think it gets portrayed in media. Um, but I've known a couple of them, and yeah, the vibe that these guys are giving off to the in their defense, I guess, boys are hoes, but they're also horny all the time. So like some of it is a little out of their hands. They do have to have, principles and morals and all that. But yeah, the whole like just talking a huge game but having no game whatsoever. They go to the party and like nothing happens. They talk about how they're gonna go
Yeah.
get laid and yeah, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I recently read a book from the perspective of a young man. It was written obviously by a man, and it was, this teenage boy was like deeply preoccupied by how horny he was. He's like, I don't even want to think about this as much as I like physically feel like I
Yeah.
have to think about this. So that absolutely is manifest in this movie. I think what's interesting is that you get hit right away with this side by side comparison of these very different backgrounds that they both come from. You have this like blue collar, very working class, arguably kid, and then you have this very wealthy, extremely privileged, and arguably a little bit head in the sand ostrichy about that privileged kid who it's implied repeatedly can only be so privileged due to his family's corruption, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're really close and they kind of insert into each other's worlds all the time. And it's what I think this film does really well is shows us how oblivious they are to that. Like we are much more aware of their circumstances than they seem to be. So I was curious from your perspective, do you feel like that's just teenagers living in their own world because that's, kind of how teenagers are? Or do you feel like it's them trying to ignore their realities or maybe a combo? I don't know.
I think it's something they're not really, I mean, they're conscious of it, but I don't think they address it in their day to day until they kind of come to blows later and start like getting at each other's throats. But I feel like it's not something they commonly acknowledge, but it's also the thread of the story that kind of guides where this goes and how it ends, honestly, without spoiling the ending. That's how I would read it. This is not a completely original thought, but somebody said that on Reddit, like this film's about a ton of things, but part of it is about like classism and also just like the impulsiveness of life and like the short term of like making decisions and like you're young and you're doing these things. And so they, despite the fact that at the end of this they are no longer really friends, they experience this like once in a lifetime kind of
Mm-hmm.
experience and
Mm-hmm.
then ultimately moment, so
I think this this trip kind of connects them more than they have ever been connected to date, even though they're very close. But it also is kind of the thing that breaks them,
yeah.
which is really interesting. And also, I think one of the things that people say about this film is how sad it is. And um, I don't know if I took away the sadness as heavily this time. I probably did on the first time. I think this time, again, maybe because I've already seen it before, it felt just kind of like the logical conclusion of this kind of deep, deep intimacy that comes from this trip that is hard to look at later. It's like the morning after of it all of I can't look closely at this thing that we went through together.
I mean, also think through how many of your best friends from certain years of your life at different ages are you still in touch with, and how many of you lost.
Mm-hmm.
And without, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, this is what year did this come out?
2001.
2001. So I mean, this is pre Facebook, pre social media.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, it makes sense that you would lose touch with people and never speak to them again. I think it makes sense in the context of the story.
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, it is kind of normal that you again, from these different backgrounds, if nothing else, like your lives would inevitably lead you in some potentially different directions too. So, I mean, that's a big part of it.
I wrote down kind of the same thing you did of how it hits you right in the beginning with the two different lifestyles and showing the difference, except I wrote down sex and fart jokes in first 5 minutes. I was on board from the get-go, Mackenzie, because I'm like, I get sex scenes
Did you have a
and
great
then there's
time?
fart
Yeah.
jokes. Yeah, I had a great time. Yeah.
You were like, this is for me. This was made for me.
Well,
So
Janelle and I were talking. I didn't expect this film, based on the plot and just, being an Oscar contender and all that, to be as funny as it was. It's a really funny
yeah.
movie.
Yeah, I think, one of the things I noticed, I guess, more this time than I did the first time I watched it. It also, like, when it was coming out, I don't remember if I saw it right when it came out, but it was at the very least shortly thereafter. And I don't remember if it was billed as much as a comedy. And I remember kind of thinking it was going to be heavy, actually. Like, this is going to be like a dark subject matter.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought that, but I thought that. And so, yeah, this time I absolutely was like, this is a lot funnier than I thought. But I was also very aware of how, again, the story was being framed. It felt like it was this very intentional juxtaposition of the like comedic teen road trip normal trope that we see in film and this like coming of age moment, but it's purposely put up against this backdrop of political corruption and potential violence that's happening at the early millennium age Mexico, right? Like, we're right at the edge of the millennium, things are shifting, and you see these three people who are kind of removed from it. But one of the things that the cinematographer did, Emmanuel did, was he purposely did not zoom in closely on even in the car or certain environments they were in. He had wide pan shots because he was like, I want you to see where they are and what they are up against and what they are either ignoring or not paying attention to or noticing. And it's, migrant workers being interrogated on the side of the road. It's policia coming through with guns and, seemingly being physically threatening. It's these very poor communities who are struggling at this time. Again, after we see this very wealthy kid at these political dinners and playing at the pool and being able to go on this road trip and do all these things. And so I noticed all that ancillary stuff more this time than I did the first time.
Yeah, it reminds me, first off, it reminds me a little bit of Cabaret when we covered that, of what's the story behind the story, like what's happening that you're seeing, but you're not really tracking it all necessarily the first time. But secondly, this movie feels simultaneously like a critique of Mexico in the political regard, but also, like, to me, it read as a love letter to Mexico. I know that this is made by, Mexican filmmakers and whatnot, but as they're driving through, me as not watching a lot of Spanish or Mexican film, the way that this, to your point, the way it's shot, they're showing you very intentionally all of these like sceneries. They're showing some of the towns that they're driving through. They're just very long shots of just what the side of the street in a rural town in Mexico looks like. There's these little experiences that feel like cultural things of, I don't know if it's a quinceanera, but when they have the girl that's like, oh, donation for our queen, and they're basically closing the road with like a thing of flowers. I thought that was very sweet. There's a shot of people doing laundry in the river, and they're like, to your point, it's probably also speaking to the social classism at all. So it's not all great things, but it just felt to me throughout of like, oh, this guy's really like showing some love to these normal everyday people in this world.
And I think, there's just such intention behind how this was shot to show all of that. Like, it was supposed to feel very authentically Mexican. It's like 90% natural light. He doesn't incorporate a lot of additional light here. And a lot of folks were extras in those communities as well. And I agree with you. I think it is absolutely a love letter to Mexico. They even have a scene later where they're all talking about how beautiful this country is and how much they love it. And I think there is this deep abiding love for his country, but I think we also see the ways in which they are upset by what's happening in the country. I think that's why it is secondary almost of at the forefront is love and the people and the communities that are make this country great, but in the background is this inevitability of there is this corruption and there are these, the real Mexico also includes the things happening outside the car window.
I'm sure there is if I took my time with it and watched this movie 3 or 4 more times, I feel like you could write, a 100-page essay on the message of this film and everything that it's getting at. But I feel like the shorthand version of it is it's weighing, like I said before, the impulsiveness and wanting to enjoy your life and do these things against this backdrop of sometimes how shitty the world can be. And I think that's very relatable nowadays, right? I don't want to open Reddit every day. I don't want to look at the news because it just like brings you down. And it's like, how am I supposed to enjoy my day to day and just hang out with my friends when I know there's all this suffering and all these terrible things happening around me? How do you, justify?
And it's hard, I think, at least for me, it's hard to watch because it's such a mirror to, the ways in which we survive these massive shifts in our political realities and the things that affect our day to day. Because I mean, this is at the end, because if we're thinking like late 1990s, this is at the end of the PRI dictatorship that had lasted like over 60 years at this point. So this is a pivotal shift in the country's history, and it predates the current democracy that is in place. And so it is a big, massive shift. And I think anytime a country is going through upheaval, one way or another, toward a positive or a negative, it's a very stressful period. And there is this, mental gymnastics you have to take to survive that period sometimes. And so I see that mirrored for us, even like a lot of the things that we're having to deal with right now. But these are teenagers just trying to like go on a road trip and get a girl, like at the end of the day. And it like brings this potentially intense story down to just a very human accessible level.
Now, can I ask, this might be a hot take, but I feel like this is something I'm not even saying I have a super strong opinion, but I feel like it's a conversation worth having. I don't think, to me, this was, we're doing Pride Month and we slotted this into the bisexual. I don't think this was a bisexual film. To me, there's a bisexual scene, and I think you can look at a couple moments earlier and as building up to this, but it felt to me just more like a film about like these two friends who happened to one night have this experience. But it didn't feel like it was glorified, or like it didn't feel like the movie was about that, if that kind of makes sense. Like, I feel like we might have done a different one. I don't know but what were your thoughts on that?
I don't know that I don't think that it's centered, but I don't think it's supposed to be centered.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's supposed to be a part of the discovery process here, and they're also kind of not facing it. I think the implication multiple times, and Luisa in particular points this out a couple of times, is that they love each other.
Yeah.
And they want to sleep with each other. And I think that is very subtle throughout. So I think it's easy to kind of overlook. I think it is an undercurrent of their relationship. And if that means that they just have a deep and abiding love for each other, but they're also obviously interested in women, or if it's that they are actually truly bi and have interest in men and women, I think that they aren't at an age that is, like both in the age, their period of time, and their own individual age as teenagers, where they quite understand it yet. And I think it's also telling that Luisa tells them this. Like, yeah. They haven't addressed it. They're arguably pretending it's not a thing. But I mean, like, let's just call a spade a spade. They're jerking off together at the pool.
Which is a rite of passage I was never privy to, and I'm kind of pissed off. I guess I didn't have enough friends with pools with 2 diving boards, but I missed out.
I mean, yeah, did you miss out? Or is it a thing that people actually do? Like, I both do and do not want to know the answer to that.
I hope not, because if so, I missed out. There's also like the shower sequence where they're like, yes. And they point out later in the movie that like they know how long each other's dicks are, and then they know how they look, like they've seen them multiple times, which like guys show each other dicks sometimes, but like I've never memorized a friend's. So to your point, there's definitely, you can read it that way.
I think there's an additional layer here is what I'm saying. I think like
it doesn't need to be like the focal point of the movie. Like I said, I'm not strongly opinionated on it. And I'm sure there are, bisexual or gay or straight people who have watched this and had some sort of like bond with this film and the story it tells and how it tells it in this very sort of organic way leading up to that moment. My question would be, how do you read their final conversation at the diner? Do you think, if you had to, I mean, it's a very short conversation, but based on their body language and how things are going, like, do you think either of them at that point in their life are continuing to explore that side of their sexuality, or do you think they are straight men, for lack of a better word, that are downplaying this one-time experience?
I think the way I read the final scene, and this is just a gut check, please don't judge me. I think that Julio, who's played by Gael Garcia, I think he is more aware of his sexuality. I think he is aware that that opened something up for him. He even talks about another friend of theirs. They are mutually talking about another friend of theirs who is gay and has a boyfriend and is very happy. Diego, or Tenoch's character, is very averse when he finds out that this kid has come out, and he's like, oh boy, that must be hard. And Julio's like, it's not hard, he has a boyfriend, he's very happy. And there's a way that he plays that I think is very subtle. He is almost offended that would automatically mean that it's tough, that it's a bad thing, and he's kind of defensive of this friend of theirs. And I just read it as he's more comfortable with his sexuality, whatever it is, but I think there is an implication that he is open to dating men. And I think that Tenoch is not facing his sexuality. I think he's more closeted, perhaps.
Well, he's also political family, right?
I was just about to say, I think he has this background that maybe doesn't allow him to be as out as he would potentially like to be. And I think, again, at this period, and also just today, right now, that can happen for anybody, right? Like, you can still just be in a position where you don't feel like you can be comfortable being out. And so I think you're supposed to see two different experiences here with your discovery of your own sexuality.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. And that one scene, I do really, it's a small thing, but I do like that Julio originally says their friend is a full-blown queen, quoting the movie here. And then Diego reacts negatively, as you said, and then he says, no, he's doing great. He has a boyfriend and everything. Like, I think, again, ahead of its time, where like you could read that the first time you hear it, I think, as Tenoch does, where it's a slur, like queen is a bad thing to call someone. And then he realizes, oh no, that's like a term of endearment for him in some way, for Julio. So again, I think ahead of its time it's all in context,
Yeah. And I think that the dynamic in that last scene is the thing that people think is sad. And I wonder how much of it is sad for people because they have drifted apart and they are no longer friends, and how much of it is sad because of these very different experiences potentially that came out of that, of like, are you able to fully accept yourself the way that you should be able to, coming out of these experiences? And they talk about Luisa. I think we have to spend obviously more time on her in general, but I think, starting at the end here, they sort of talk about her, in my opinion, too briefly. Like, she's kind of this pivotal moment for them in their friendship. And it's a sad reminiscence that she died shortly thereafter this trip, but then it feels kind of abrupt. I don't know. What was your experience of, like, it feels like that conversation ends quickly?
It's because they're associating her with that experience that they had. And I think neither of them wants to direct, or at least Julio is afraid of what would happen if he brings it up. And I think Tenoch doesn't want to talk about it at all. So I think because she is tied to that, they're never going to want to discuss it.
And I just love her, again, segueing into Luisa a little bit. I love that she has such an interesting trajectory here. She has gotten this devastating news before this road trip ensues, and she knows she's going to die, and she decides to live her last days, weeks, whatever it's going to be, to the fullest. And she has just released her inhibitions, literally, and decided, like, fuck it, I'm just going to go. And number one, love that for her. Number two, love that she also, with that time, like, has no fucks to give and wants to just hold a mirror up to these two little twats and be like, get your shit together. Like, she is just so over their shit. And I love that she seems to be, for the moment, the first person paying attention to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's intentional, right? Because one of them is a very wealthy background. Their parents are very busy with, their social calendars and obligations. And one of them is very hardworking, and their family is very
Yeah.
busy trying to provide for the family. So for very different reasons, their families do not seem to be super present, right? He called the nanny mother for 5 years,
Yep.
right? So I love that the person that pays attention to them finally and doesn't work for them is calling them on their shit and is exposing them to new things. And she's just a fascinating character, I think, to me, and what she goes through as well.
Yeah, you left out the part though. You pointed out all the things that instigate this, but you left out that she took a cosmopolitan quiz and Cosmo told her you're not like a strong whatever the fuck it was. She's like, okay, I have to make a change. But yeah, as a first time watcher, you don't really know what's going on with her character. I mean, you associate it with she's been cheated on, she feels hurt, but that to me, as a first time watcher, 40 minutes didn't justify what she was doing. It was just, I'm like, she's going out with like children, basically, like teenagers, and
But she gets those test results. Like there's an they don't tell you exactly.
they don't.
But
Yeah, but I didn't
she's
associate.
getting
They said
results.
she went to a doctor's office to get some results. She read and then they segue directly into the magazine thing, and that gets you. It's like a little blink and you miss it moment.
Yeah.
And then she goes on this thing, but like her forwardness. It's very throwing the first time you watch this of how they're talking about their dicks and like how they have, and she's asking them, how do you fuck your girlfriends? Like she's one of the guys basically at this point, just sort of like instigating these like very sexual conversations. At one point, I don't even remember what one of them says, but she says yummy in response to something sexual that they say. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, there's a lot of very forward, and she's kind of controlling the situation, but is also fully okay with walking away from it and dropping these two assholes if they don't behave themselves.
Yeah, and I think like she's, in seemingly in the middle of nowhere when she lays the rules down, and she's like, "Listen, fuck y'all, I'm out." And she just starts walking off, which
Mm-hmm.
I think is both incredibly brave and stupid, because you're in the middle of nowhere during, again, what we are seeing as a backdrop is not great, right? But also she just doesn't care at this point. And if you are going to die, right, you're not going to put up with bullshit for the remainder of your time. And I, again, love that for her. The one moment I think that changes slightly is when she calls her husband at the pool hall, I think it is, and she allows him to kind of, go off on her and be upset and try to understand why she's, leaving. And she's so invested in setting him up for success. She's like, don't go to this cleaner. He, is going to ruin your shirts. Here's where this is. Do this, do that. And it just immediately made me think of like just the emotional and physical labor that women take on to make your lives fucking easier, and you don't appreciate. And she's literally dying, and she still feels such an obligation to take care of you in
I
that
think
moment. And
I
I
think
think that's deeply underrated. That's not
it's
always
two
acknowledged.
things. It's exactly what you're talking about. If she's in that, like in the habit of taking care of him and has been doing it probably their whole relationship. I think the second part is because she knows she's dead. He's going to find out that she's dead, and she wants to set him up in a different way of like, move on without me. Like, you're going to be happier. Like, go get your shit together.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's
She
those two
does.
things. But tying into that exact thing, that shot is incredible. Like one of my favorite ones in the movie.
The reflection.
Yeah, because she's in there like crying her eyes out, and just her performance is brilliant. But we're looking at her in the booth, and then you see the reflection of the two goofballs in the pool hall, like playing billiards together,
Mm-hmm.
and like they're having a whole thing. And there's so much of that where there's shit going on in the background here. There's these long one shots. Just all the credit to the cinematographer, like we said at the start.
I mean, I just can't get over that. I don't know shit about shit when it comes to shooting these things, but I can tell you that just looks like such a feat, such a feat of cinematography. Again, you can tell that it seems like it is still here, a lot of natural light, like pool hall light, and not catching the glare and not catching the camera, and getting this incredibly emotional moment captured. And these kids are just so oblivious to it.
Yeah.
And that's just, yeah, I agree. It's such an incredible shot. And I think she doesn't want to share that moment with them. She doesn't want them to have to be sensitive to it or deal with it. It's very private, even though it's right there. But I like that on the whole, she kind of forces them to face, again, the things that they don't really want to face. She makes them face their own preconceived notions of masculinity, however fragile, and she calls out their potential latent attraction to each other and calls out what their brotherhood is based on. These rules that we talked about at the beginning, there are 10 rules for this, this brotherhood of theirs, and they've broken them, and she makes them kind of be inspired enough to confess that, and it's through their own relationships with her, which is interesting. And I love the scene in the car where she's like, Julio, like wouldn't have mattered who walked into the room, like the same thing would have happened either way, like don't flatter yourself.
This poor girl, all she wants to do is fuck and like live her life free and like be impulsive, and she's stuck with these two boys, and the look on her face of discipline, that is a running joke throughout this, of after sex she almost looks at the camera and is just like,
did you fucking see that? Did you see that shit? Like,
and like, I don't know why this is one of the top IMDb facts, but apparently the sex scenes with each boy last the exact same amount of time. Again, to show she is disappointing, because it's 1 minute and 28 seconds, but they are equal. They keep having this like literal dick measuring contest.
Yes.
And she's like, you're both terrible at this, for the record.
And I love that she tells him, she's like, you both come in 10 seconds. Like, let's just be real. Like, this is so pathetic. And, again, that's why we did this shot, because they don't have a lot of stamina going for them. And I love that she's even trying to talk them through it. She's like literally trying to coach them. She's like, go slower, look at me, whatever. And they just can't handle it, but she leaves them with some pearls of wisdom of like, here's what you need to do to deal with that, and there's the implication. Yes, the implication is that they learned something, and that it also probably got better in that scene where they're all together, where you actually get the least visibility into. And I think that's interesting. Like, you only get a brief preview of that, and it ends with the boys kissing.
Were you a little let down by that? Not by the boys kissing, but by the scene itself being short, and kind of after we sit through an incredible 7-minute one shot of all these things happening at this bar, and they start dancing, we finally get to the room, and it's like we spent 90 minutes building this up, and it starts, and I think within like 2 minutes we like, I don't know how I feel of like, oh, I need this sex scene to be longer. That's a weird thing to say, but it just felt like, oh, that was it. Okay, cool.
I think, speaking a little bit out of the film context and in the period that this was made context, I don't know how well a longer version of that scene would have been received.
Well, Team America World Police came out like 2 years later, and that had one of the greatest sex scenes of all time. And that just, I wanted that, of like, what are the crazy positions this lady can think up, with these two kids that she's like about to die. Like, she's got some crazy ideas, I bet.
What a direct comparison. God, what a moment in time. Team America World Police. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I was disappointed by it. I think I saw it as a highly intimate moment for them that we're not supposed to be privy to, because they're letting these latent desires, as it were, like we said, come to the fore and take precedence. And it's actually seemingly, again, the way she's kind of removed from the frame, it is less about her and it is more about them, and this culmination of these tensions that have built up. At least that's the way that I read it. And so I think it's supposed to be more about them, but we're not supposed to see it because it's so tender and it's so raw for them, is kind of what I thought.
Yeah, I think that's fair. For me, it was like a big build, and especially like after that long sequence where we know where this is going, and I feel like this is one of those rare cases where it's like, I don't want to throw a sex scene in a movie just for the sake of having a sex scene, but I'm like, this is one where I feel like it would lend a little more to the story if I want to see the next 60 seconds of what happens after that kiss. Like, what is their react? Like that I'd be curious to see, but yeah.
Yeah, I think you just see them like have their inhibitions, fall down, and that's supposed to imply everything else.
That's fair. So can I like ask about something else that's a little like threw me a little bit this first time watching this? Did you pick up, we haven't mentioned the narrator yet, but Danielle Jimenez Cacho, that narrates this whole thing incredibly. The pauses where we're listening to the action on screen, and then it goes dead silent for an awkward amount of, like, it's not that long, but it's 2 to 3 seconds
every time,
and then he starts talking. What do you think is the reason for that? And does that throw you on multiple watches still, or no?
It definitely threw me the first time, and then I sort of forgot about it until it happens the first time on the second watch. or third watch. And but then I remembered it, and so I was prepared for it. But I think it's supposed to make you question it long enough to pay attention, to force you to pay attention
It
to it.
is,
Because
yeah.
I think that he, because there is usually dialogue or some action happening right before it, and I think it's supposed to snap you out of that to where you have to pay attention, because this narrator is incredibly powerful. I mean, he is omniscient. He understands where all of this is going. He gives you tendrils of it before and after the things are happening. So he's giving you this almost, ghostly narration of, this person is going to die, this person is never going to fish again, this
I was
person
gonna
is,
say,
like
God help you if this guy's doing a voiceover of your life, because you're gonna have a sad ending.
you're gonna have a
Everything ends
sad
sad.
ending. And he's just like, his delivery is really interesting, because I think he is supposed to be, and this is the way he sounds to me, like a historian. He's very neutral, very like, these are the facts, man.
Yeah.
Like I'm just sharing with you the facts. And he's telling us things that they don't know or they don't want to deal with. Again, if we look at their kind of ostrich approach to the world around them, he's making them, and by extension us, face that thing, whatever it
Right.
is, and that they don't want to. And economic things, deaths, and implications of things that are going to change and happen in this country, and then also the things that they do to each other. So it's a really powerful voice, even though I don't know how many times. Do you know how many times it happened? I don't remember off the top of my head, but it feels like a half dozen, not
That he
a
narrates
ton
in the
more.
film?
Yeah.
No, I think it's more than, I would say it's at least like 10 times that he ends up, because he tells you,
Yeah.
each character
Yeah.
at the start, and then a lot of the characters they interact with throughout. But yeah,
Mhm.
it threw me the first time, but then I totally agree with you. That's how I read it, of, wow, this is getting me to tune back in. If at any point I was like,
Mhm.
my mind was wandering, or I was thinking instead of paying attention to the movie, that silence just snaps you right back in. I wonder if that was a director's choice, or the editing room, or like the audio. Like, I'm curious, but didn't have the time to look it up.
My guess is it's a writing piece on the part of the brothers, right? And then executed by
Mm,
Alfonso, because I do think it's supposed to show you that there's this, you could easily get lost in, again, this like energetic teenage road trip trope, and just pay attention to that. I think it's supposed to snap you out of that and realize, like, this bubble's going to burst one way or the other. Here's all the other factors to this, and this does not exist in a vacuum, this does not exist in a bubble, and wake up. So I do feel like it's very intentional. Absolutely.
cool. Yeah, I wonder, this movie would have been totally different if it was in American hands. I'm imagining just how bad it would have been, because they would have played everything for comedy. And I feel like it would
Mhm.
have not had the guts that this has to have it play out the way that it did.
I think that's a great point. And like, what is your take on what is like the thing or combination of things that makes this feel so different for me? So you have a noodle to think. I I feel like the aesthetic of this film feels different. The again, the cinematography stands out so much to me here. And then I think secondarily, the performances feel so raw and authentic that it almost feels documentarian. It feels
That's
like you're
another kind of
watching a
piece of
real
the
story.
narrator, probably, tying into
Mhm.
that, of he's telling you what happened IRL.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
mean, I will
it's really
say,
interesting.
this is not my answer, but I will agree with you 100%. I feel like it's hard to do service to the performances in this. We've talked about Luisa a bit, but both of the young men, like Diego in the hotel room yelling, or Tenoch yelling at Julio after he finds out that he slept with his girlfriend, like that goes on for an uncomfortable amount of time. But he is
Mhm.
just like hammering him. The two of them playing off each other in the hotel room is brilliant. And then Julio gets his chance the next day when he's outside the car trying to whoop his ass. Like, they both go really, and the performances are great. But I think my answer would be, it ties into everything we've said. But I think, for as insane and sort of unrealistic as this plot line might seem on first when you read the blurb, it feels grounded in reality. It feels like something I could kind
Yeah.
of buy happening, because you think
Yeah.
about yourself at 18, 19, when you have a ton
Mhm.
of hormones and a lot of free time. And if you had money, yeah, let's go on a road trip. It's a cute girl. Like,
Mhm.
let's see what happens. And it just, for maybe that's why they wait until the end to have that moment take place with like the bisexual
Right.
experience, because maybe some people watching it don't know that that's where this is headed, and until that point it just feels like who's going to get the girl kind of story.
Yeah.
And I like that it makes that kind of hard left turn halfway through of her being like, I don't really want either one of you, but I want to live, so
Right.
here we go.
And what optimism on the part of these kids, by the way, to be like, fuck it, let's get in the car and take this girl. Like, we're going to maybe get a shot here. This woman is significantly older and more sophisticated than them. And they're like, let's just fucking go. Like, what a teenage boy thing to do, to be like, we're going to get her. Like,
also, did they not realize once they got in the car that one of them would have to lose, most likely? They get upset, or like...
But isn't that the question, right? Of like, do they actually think one of them is going to have to lose? Or do they think they're going to work their way into at least a threesome?
I don't think they do, because Julio gets pissed when he sees them first, like, hooking up or whatever. So
but that's excluding him. That's why he's pissed,
so you
right?
think he
like
wanted to be in the room where it happens.
Right.
Hamilton
I think...
style. Okay.
You never know. You never know. But I do think that that's, you know, that's the dream of every teenage boy. Let's be honest. So
A threesome?
but with two women probably is the
yes.
preference for
It's
sure.
the dream of
for
every
sure.
age boy, Mackenzie.
That's true. Absolutely.
But I was going to say that the one unrealistic thing, and it's such a small thing, but I was like, I didn't need that, was when they find out that there actually is a beach called Heaven's Mouth. He goes, what's it called? Heaven's Mouth. And they go, oh, that felt campy to me. I didn't need that moment. And it turns out this thing we made up really exists.
And that they were going to the right place and found it, you know. I wonder if there's like a deleted scene where they're like, do us a solid, you know, like say that
here's $10.
Say that this is what this is. Come on, my dude. But I mean, I'd like to say I think it's a really beautiful film, and it was a fun rewatch for me because I haven't seen it in a long time. So I think it holds up absolutely. And to your point, I think part of that is because it was probably, you know, pretty ahead of its time right when it came out. And the performances are kind of incredible. So anyway, what would you rate it first time watcher?
I would rate it sexier than Wuthering Heights 2026. Again, I'm going to keep fucking
saying I was going to say, are you just going to, like, every chance you get, be like, the sex in Wuthering Heights?
That's my new
so
scale.
bad.
I'm not going to do a 10-point scale. I'm just going to say, was it or was it not sexier than Wuthering Heights based on expectations? I'm going to rate this really high. I just cannot stop singing the praises of everyone involved in this, as well as, like, the cinematographer. We didn't talk about the shot when it's next to the car, and then it's in front of the car, and then it's another 5-minute sequence where there's a conversation happening. You don't even realize it's a one shot. Cars are passing them, and it's just, that one is incredible. There's one where they're in the apartment and it's filming her, I think, on the phone. She walks out the door, the camera slowly pans, and then we're looking down out her window at her getting into the car. There's some really, really good stuff in here from a cinematographer point of view, and that's to say not even enough about the performances. So I'm going to go like 8.5. I thought it was really enjoyable. It was, like, for a first watch, funnier, like I said, than I thought. The performances are great. I didn't love the twist at the end initially, but then it makes the rest of the movie make so much more sense when you watch it through that lens.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, really quick before I get into my thoughts there, what would you say is your the golden garnish of this? The MVP of this?
Oof, the cinematographer. I feel like I should have saved that speech for here, but I'll just say the cinematographer for sure.
I agree. I think it's so hard to, I was so preoccupied by it this time. I don't know that I appreciated it as much on the first watch, but this time I was just enraptured by the shots and how they were done and how beautiful they were. So I totally agree.
Good for the director and all the actors involved, because doing a one shot is a 20 or 30 person job. But I think none of it works without the cinematographer being there. So
yeah, I agree. I think I'd give this like an 8.5, 8.5, something like that, probably in that range. Cause it's so solid, across the board. Absolutely.
You want my worst fact?
Oh yeah. Hit us with the worst fact.
So it's not poorly rated on IMDb, but this is, my question was just why? Why does the world need to know this? So the worst fact is that Diego Luna wore a prosthetic penis in this, because in real life he's not actually circumcised, but they needed him to be circumcised in the movie. I I didn't need to know that.
I didn't need that information. I didn't need that information.
Who
I don't
leaks
know.
that to
I
the
mean,
press? Did Diego tell them that, or did just it's
and now we're propagating that information.
sorry
Nobody needs
everybody.
it.
Yeah.
Nobody, we can cut this. I don't know. Yikes. Oh, poor Diego. What an awkward thing to have be public knowledge now. Anywho's.
Oh, there you go.
All right. Well, thank you for joining, fam. This was a fun one. I thought this was a beautiful rewatch experience. Come back next week where we are going to talk about the adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, which I'm super excited to chat about.
First watch again.
That one is a first watch for me. None of the others have been, so I'm excited. All right. In the meantime, follow us on our socials. We drink and we watch things, mainly on Instagram. Leave us comments, send us messages. We'll read them on the pod. This week, I think it's Orsa Rain put this on our go figure our rules of attraction reel, which is what we referenced earlier, but about like boys and girls can't be single boys and girls can't be friends, and she just said I agree with that. So maybe a bad experience. I don't know. I mean, it's straight facts.
Keep it simple.
It just really is at this point. Anyways, all right, kids. Well, go have a drink and watch a thing. Cheers.
Cheers.